welcome back to another episode of Pokemon Knowledge. On today's episode, I want to try my best to have an adult conversation with you. And it's very simple. Can you or can you not be critical towards anyone else in the Pokemon hobby? And even to go one step further than that, are you allowed to be critical towards people in the Pokemon YouTube sphere? And the reason why this video even exists today has a lot to do with what happened with UnlistedLeaf, how he put out that letter saying he's pretty much leaving YouTube and he's leaving social media and all this stuff. The question is, are you allowed to be critical towards people in this hobby? If you're seeing people do things that you don't agree with, or you don't think are moral, or you don't believe in the justification for a lot of the things that they're doing, are you allowed to be critical? And more importantly, not just being critical, are you actually able to have a critical thought and not have it come off as clout chasing? Is it even possible? Because even a video like this, when I would address a topic that a lot of people are talking about, the UnlistedLeaf celebration, pack opening fiasco, and everything that surrounded that, am I actually even allowed? And that's a crazy thing, right? To use the word allowed. Am I allowed to be critical? Am I allowed to make a video about this? Because it is almost impossible, and especially in this day and age, whether you want to talk about subscriber count, viewer count, or just your overall impact in the Pokemon world, or, whatever weird justification you want to give. Are you even allowed to be critical? Because it's just clout chasing, and that's what a lot of people will say. And the question is, well, how large would you actually need to be allowed to call out different people, or when you see things that are happening that you don't agree with, or when you see a large mass of people or a large number of people being very vocal and saying their concerns about what they're seeing? Are you allowed to address their concerns? And then it brings up that conversation too, is, are their concerns, that old saying that it's just the vocal minority versus the quiet majority? And I don't know which one it is. I don't know if it's more the vocal minority that's just more or less got fed up with a lot of the actions we're seeing going on in the hobby. And it almost brings up that Batman quote from the Batman movie. You could almost live long enough to see yourself become the villain. And I feel like that is sort of what's happening in a way, is that people are almost being villainized, where people are seeing the actions they're doing and they're just so fed up on a huge macro scale of what's going on in the Pokemon hobby, that when they see people that they trust or that they respect, or maybe got them back into the hobby, if they feel that in some way their actions are being detrimental, I feel a lot of people are now kind of standing up or speaking up, or at least calling things out how they see them. Now, how somebody may see something is 100% on their personal opinion. And I think that's a big thing too, especially in the day and age we live in. It's that everybody has an opinion, everybody wants to express their opinions, and not only do people want to express their opinions, they don't ever want to hear the opposite side or maybe the negative side. So it brings up the question of just how do you go about addressing it? And I don't think there is any way to address these type of topics where the person who is actually addressing them, I think there is no way that they could come out on top. And it's because of what I just said, that whole clout chasing argument, that whole drama baiting type thing, and it makes sense. But when people are talking about this in small groups, whether it's in Discord channels or Reddit groups, there's a reason why people are vocalizing this. And yeah, it is that macro thing. And when I say it's the more macro of the hobby, is that there was so much greed going on in the hobby very recently, especially 2020, early 2021, and even right now to today, there was just a lot of greed in the hobby. And you can make your own arguments whether you think that greed is justified or not. Do you believe in, like that scalper mentality that you can get more money for products? So if you have that ability to do that, you should do everything in your ability to maximize your gains. Whether you're an individual person going into Walmart or Target clearing out shelves, or whether you're somebody who has relationships with distributors, or if you are the actual distributor themselves getting your product directly from the Pokemon company itself, and you are starting to see what the secondary market prices are doing. So now you are increasing your prices to the people that you have built relationships with, direct product relationships, especially like a lot of local small LGSs, to increase your prices to them. It brings up like a ton of different conversations. But in today's video, like we look at what happened with UnlistedLeaf, and it was very obvious right away what the actual reaction was going to be from the community as a whole. And one of the major reactions that a lot of people saw coming, and it's almost like watching that train wreck happen, and no matter what you want to do, you want to turn away, but you can't, because that's just why that saying literally exists. It's like a train wreck and you can't turn away. And one of the big things that happened was UnlistedLeaf advertised those 3 celebration packs for like $60 and a signed Leaf Energy by him, and that it was going to be this whole thing. But it took a long time in his video to actually get to the point of the video where he literally said he would not be the person opening the packs, that he would actually be like doing a live stream of watching other people open the packs. And the other people that were opening the packs was StockX, and they were based out of somewheres in California, and there was just a bunch of people in a room with gloves on. And that is the most bizarre, backwards thinking thing ever. Why people would open up Pokemon cards with gloves on makes no sense. And I'll tell you guys right now, if you wash your hands, you will be safe to open up Pokemon cards. And the reason why you do not want to wear gloves is because when you wear gloves, it is very hard to get a good sense of how much pressure you're putting on the card. And why I say pressure is way more important than any possible sweat or maybe grease or whatever you might have on your hands, which even that is a stretch, assuming you just wash your hands, then properly dry your hands afterwards. Trust me, skin on cards is way better than any sort of latex gloves on cards. I don't care how tight fitting those latex gloves are, whether they're surgical gloves and they're one size too small and your circulation's cutting off your hands and you are then they're as tight as possible. They're still not as good as your skin, and that major thing I said is you cannot get a very true understanding of how much pressure you're putting on the card. And when you talk about, especially when it comes to grading and conditions of cards, yeah, there's centering, there's corners, there's edges. But that fourth major one that comes extremely important when it talks about pressure on cards is surface. Yeah, we all hate the old tins in the past where the Pokemon cards were not just loosely placed in the plastic, that they were actually almost crimped in the plastic holder of a lot of these older tins, and it damaged the cards. And it's because of the pressure of how it puts on cards. And when you talk about grading, if you do see any very small finger indents, that throws off the surface look of those cards, and somebody who's grading and somebody who has a lot of experience grading will see those very small indents in the surface of the cards, which you might not even realize you're doing. And whether or not you're going to do that every time wearing gloves is neither here nor there. But just the fact that there is that greater likelihood or higher probability that you could potentially put too much pressure on a card. And not only are you putting too much pressure on a card, you are putting too much pressure on somebody else's card, meaning somebody who paid in to have this pack breaking experience. You could potentially inadvertently be damaging their cards and never even realizing you're doing it. And the reason why I say I think this is important is because the people opening these cards should have known that. They should have been aware that that is an issue, and they should have just took the one extra step to just wash and then properly dry their hands. So that is something important to at least keep in mind. And then next, I could understand the whole pack opening experience. But the fact is that UnlistedLeaf was not opening people's packs. And while I do struggle with the justification of paying extra money to have people open your packs, I at least could sit back and look at it from the outside in that, yeah, maybe if you've grown an attachment to a certain content creator, or you've watched a ton of their videos, or if you've been around for either months, or in his case, a lot of people have been watching his videos for years. So yeah, when you feel that somebody has put out a ton of videos over a long amount of time, and you've gotten a lot of, call it maybe free enjoyment and maybe a little bit of entertainment or whatever, and you just wanted to support that content creator, whether I agree with that or not, I could see that justification, I could see that understanding. So but then when they weren't having their actual cards be opened by him, I could see how little people could be a little bit frustrated. And then the worst thing is, to add insult to injury, the amount of packs that was opening by multiple people on that stream. It was like 4 people opening different people's packs at the same time. You didn't even know when your pack was up. You wouldn't even know if he was opening your pack. I could see how that could be extremely frustrating to a lot of people opening their packs. And whether or not I agree with how much money, like say a PokeRev charges for his packs, at least it is him opening those packs. At least there is the ability that you could probably find the point of the video where he's opening your cards and you can see what he pulled. And maybe if you did get a huge chase card, you would see his reaction to that chase card. Now, whether or not that reaction is more, I don't know, call it like the Pokemon opening character, and maybe not a true representation of how he actually feels about those cards, is a totally separate video and a totally separate debate whether or not you think that's true or not. But at least you would be able to find that part of the video and at least have some sort of justification for that, for paying that premium for somebody else to open up your packs. And again, that's neither here nor there whether I agree with that justification or if I think you should be doing that. I at least could understand the argument. But that's not what happened. UnlistedLeaf did not open these packs. So from the outside looking in, it looked like 100% money grab. And I don't know if he didn't foresee all this happening. And the reason why I said I don't know if he actually foresaw this happening, because other people did foresee it happen. People were talking about the fact before this video even came out of people opening these packs that there had to have been a ton of people that bought into this break and did not realize that he wasn't opening their packs. And then you can go on to the comment section of his video and see the comments literally of people saying, I didn't know you weren't opening my packs. I never would have bought them if I didn't know that. So if for you and for me that knew this was all coming down the pipeline, for him to not see that is a either huge lack of judgment by him or very poor hindsight of what the reaction was going to be. Or there's the big one that a lot of people probably aren't really talking about or aren't discussing, that maybe he realized that all this stuff was going to happen and maybe he just didn't care. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of people will not want to even address the thought that everyone else who knew what the actual breakdown of what was going to happen, if everyone could see this, maybe he just didn't care. And I think that's the hard thing for a lot of people to do, is when you have somebody that has a ton of followers, there is a lot of money in this sphere if you wanted to, whether it's not manipulate the market or manipulate the viewers, but it's that kind of taking advantage of your listeners, taking advantage of your viewers, and putting your name out there, because you cannot deny the fact that somebody with a huge following like him, somebody like him that has a very popular name, there is a very strong, very apparent value that comes along just by putting his name as part of the advertisement for no matter what event you're going to do. And I'm sure there's a ton of people that reach out to him on a daily, weekly, monthly, yearly basis. He probably gets a ton of emails just in like different sort of marketing that people want to be able to slap his name onto. So with that said, there's no way that there was not some sort of financial gain for him. And that brings the question of, do I believe that is it okay to start to use your name to start to make money for what you have built? And because why I say what you have built is he built that channel. He did that, pack opening and the hype experience and all the different videos he's made on his channel for years now. Is he allowed to start to monetize that? And my answer to that would be, it's questionable. And that's why it's questionable, is because the question is, I'm fine with people making money in the hobby. I'm fine with people buying cards, grading cards, flipping cards, selling cards, taking something that has true inherent value to it and using that inherent value to make yourself better off, whether it's financially in life or whatever. But the only thing that I struggle with, and I'm sure a lot of other people struggle with, is the paths or the routes that you take in order to make that money. And the big route and the big path that a lot of people, especially now, more than ever, people are really starting to stand up and speak out against, is that whole taking advantage of your audience. And whether or not what he was doing actually was taking advantage of his audience, it definitely felt that way. And when you say it definitely felt that way, you look at how many packs he was able to sell. It was like between, I want to say like 1,500 and 2,000 of those 3 packs that he sold at $60 a piece. That is a lot of money that was made in a very short amount of time. And when you talk about short amount of time, you're talking within the course of just a couple hour video. And then people would just be like, well, if you believe it's okay to make money in Pokemon, why is it not okay for, somebody to charge a lot of money? And it's all relative, right? It's all relative just based off of what you feel and what you think, because at the end, it's always opinion based. It's what do you think is justified versus what does somebody else think is justified. For me, and probably for a lot of you out there, $20 per celebration pack, you would probably say that it's very hard to justify the dollar amount of a $25 celebration pack. When you look at an ETB, you can buy at MSRP, not even counting distributor pricing, just to buy it off the shelves, for $50, and you get 10 packs of celebrations in there, and you want to just ignore everything else that's in that ETB. So let's ignore the Green Ninja Gold Star, let's ignore the 5 different regular booster packs that are in there, and let's just strictly focus on the celebration packs. It's still $5 a pack. And again, that's ignoring everything else that's in the ETB and just looking at the value of that ETB and only the celebration pack, it's $5 a piece. So if you want to, even on the high end, look at the packs being valued at that and then saying, can you justify a 4x towards those prices? Because then you're talking 3 booster boxes at $60. Yeah. Is there supposed to be like that pack opening experience that I talked about earlier? There just wasn't there. So yeah, there can definitely be a lot of people that can be critical towards this. But I almost feel like we've gotten to the point in the hobby where if any time you're critical, again, you just become either a clout chaser or you just become like an asshole. And you are not allowed to talk down or talk negative about things you're seeing. Things you're seeing that just are not good, in your opinion, for the long-term growth of the hobby. And why I always go back to that is that whole long-term growth thing, right? And the reason why is because for long-term growth, you want to see people be successful in this hobby. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. In order to be successful in this hobby, you cannot be buying cards or different sealed products at extremely high secondary market prices right at release. Because in order for you to somehow grow your collection and maybe be able to sell some cards in the future and be able to take those profits and grow your collection even more, because unless you have just an unlimited amount of money and a totally unlimited bankroll, it is very hard to just grow your collection strictly by buying and never by selling anything. Because for a lot of people, including myself, the way I'm able to grow my collection is to sell products, to sell cards at values that are higher than I paid for them. So the question is, if people are buying products at extremely high inflated secondary market prices right at release or right at the beginning of cards, where everyone expects that very initial downtrend in price, listen, Celebrations is the hot set. Right at release, prices are probably going to be at the highest. But what happens after release? Prices start to retrace until eventually, no matter when that event happens, eventually you're going to hit a bottom. And then if you're not going to ignore history of most other sets, most other cards, eventually, whenever that bottom happens, then you'll start to see a tick back up. And another thing people already realize, or anybody with even half a brain realizes, that yeah, the unlisted leaf letter that he put out is pointless. There's no way he is leaving the hobby. There's no way somebody with millions of followers who makes tons of money on his channel, there's no chance he is going to not come back. If anything, like, to put that letter out there and not even like step back and just say, hey guys, listen, I'm sorry that some of you guys misunderstood what this pack breaking experience is going to be like. The fact that I wasn't going to be opening your cards. He can show the part of the video where, he mentioned that. Not even like an apology. All he did was he was getting death threats and all this stuff. And whether or not he actually truly got death threats through like, private messages on Instagram or any other ways you could maybe reach him, maybe through email, maybe. But I went through the video. I looked for any sort of comments that were like death threat type comments, and I couldn't find any. Yeah, I found a lot of comments that were very critical of what happened, but I didn't see any like death threat type. And that like brings up like this whole, is that bad? Of course it is. And you will not be able to find me a single person that would say that anybody sending a death threat is not bad. But now that's like what surrounds this, is that all these people just in masses weren't just being critical, but they were somehow wishing death upon him. And that's where like this whole conversation now goes out of the window, and now you can barely even have this conversation because it's like, well, are you okay with people wishing death upon him? It's like, no. And anybody with any sort of brain would realize that that is not okay. But you can't let like, I'm sure, and I don't know this for 100%, but I'm sure that whoever was sending him death threats was a very, very, very extremely small group of people, and their actions are totally unacceptable. But now it's a huge cop-out to just look at that as being the entire majority of everyone who is being critical of him, and just find the worst of the worst of the worst, and that's all you will talk about. And I'm sure a lot of this conversation, a lot of this discussion, a lot of this topic will just be surrounded by that whole death threat thing. And it won't just be talking about like the people who were just being critical and not wishing death upon the guy. And that's why I'm afraid this conversation will just come off as he will come out in the end looking like the victim and looking like the person that was just attacked and all of it was unjustified and all this stuff, and that people were just being super mean to him and all this, and he won't just admit that, hey guys, I'm sorry that it might have came off as a huge money grab. Maybe obviously he wasn't getting every single cent, every single penny of how much money they were making. And yeah, I'm not stupid. I understand that some of the money was going towards grading like a certain amount of the cards, and there was all that aspect built into it, and so there was a little bit more value in the pack opening experience, assuming you were able to pull like one of the big chase cards, and then they were going to pay for your card to go away for graded and all this stuff. I'm not going to ignore that fact at all. That is a very true thing. Now it doesn't change the fact that you're just going to play off of people's emotions and send out that letter and now get more hype around this, and then come back with a video, and there's no way that he's gone for a month or 2 months or a year. I'll tell you right now, if he's gone for a year and he doesn't make a single YouTube video or post, or he really does call off social media for a year, I'll make you a deal. I'll end my channel and I will make a video where I just take all my Pokemon cards, I'll bring them in my backyard, I'll put them in my fire pit, and I'll burn them all. Because that's how confident I am that he won't be gone for a year. It's the biggest lie ever. Like, why go out there and make that letter? Why do that? You have no intention of doing that. So don't make the letter in the first place. It's so weird. It's so confusing. It doesn't make any sense. Whether or not him writing that letter was just a, off the cuff, passionate type decision where he just wrote that letter saying he's now going to swear off YouTube and it's the end and all this stuff and he's never coming back. It just plays on, people. It almost makes people look stupid. No one believes that. Nobody believes he's walking away. So if you have no intention of doing that, don't say that. And in the same video, I just told you guys I would go take all my cards and burn them in my fire pit, but I have no intention of actually doing that. But I do it in a sarcastic way because you guys aren't stupid. And I don't talk to you like you're stupid. But I feel like that is one of the complaints people have, is that people are playing off of other people's emotions and playing off their, intelligence and talking to them as if they're not smart, rational people. There's not a single one of you guys out there who, if he didn't come back for a year, would then ask me to burn my cards and expect me to actually do it. Because I can say things in a way that doesn't play off of your intelligence. But when somebody writes that letter and says, oh, I'm done, they're now going to build all this hype around. So when they do make this video, it's just going to be almost a clickbaity type thing. So and that's the worst part of it too, right? Is that you make these clickbaity type titles saying, oh, the end, and it's not an actual truth. You're just now using everybody's, call it anger or frustrations. You're now using it against them for clicks. And that's the biggest shame of all this. And I don't know, guys. I want you to know that I trust your opinions, and I'm going to ask you right now. Let me know down in the comments. Do you believe that what's going on in the hobby, if you're allowed to even comment on this, can you talk about the stuff that's going on? Is there any way that a video like this is not clout chasing? Because it probably will end up being marked as clout chasing. At what point would you have to get to that when you start to see things happen in the hobby that you do not agree with, when are you allowed to talk about them? Or are you actually truly never allowed to talk about them? Because when you talk about things like this, it is strictly opinion based. And the question is, when people click on videos like this one, they click on these videos probably expecting to hear my opinions on a lot of things. Whether or not my opinions are true, whether or not my opinions are false, whether or not my opinions are justified, or whether they're unjustified. That's all they are. They're just opinions. And I wonder when opinions are no longer allowed to be said, or how big you have to be to say it. But hey guys, like I said, I just want to know your opinions. Sorry, I know this video went off on a tangent, but other than that, catch you on the next video.